Hi, I'm Mr. Kangas, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 5, Section 5, Adding and Subtracting Like Fractions. And in this video, essentially we're going to teach you how to add and subtract fractions that have common denominators already, add and subtract mixed numbers that have a common denominator, and how to add and subtract fractions, algebraic fractions, so fractions that have variables in them. But to start, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting just regular fractions that have common denominators, such as 5/8 plus 3/8. Just as a quick refresher on this stuff, this is stuff we should have already learned at one point. If you have common denominators, then you leave the denominator the same, and you add the numerators. So you get an answer in this case of 8/8. So in this case, the answer actually turned out to be 1. It's not always going to be the case. But with subtraction, you do want to be careful because, for example, if we see something like 3/8 minus 5/8, okay, we have the common denominator of 8, and we are subtracting, but just like with normal subtraction, you might want to use keep, flip, change just to prevent any mistakes, because if you use K, F, C here, you'll see that the answer you get is actually -2/8. Because when you do 3 minus 5, you get an answer of -2. Part of the, one of the many reasons why I always use KFC when I see subtraction is just simply because it prevents little mistakes. Because sometimes when our mind sees 3 minus 5, we instantly think 2, even though that's not the correct answer. The correct answer is actually -2. So the reason why you just add the numerators, if you have something like 5/8 plus 3/8, is because with a fraction, the bottom doesn't actually represent the denominator, doesn't actually represent what you have. It's what you want in order to have a whole. What you actually have is up top. So we have 5 out of 8 slices of pizza, and we're adding 3 out of 8 slices of pizza, so total we have 8 out of 8 slices. And that's the reason why you need to have a common denominator in order to add the fractions, because if I have 5 out of 8 slices and someone else has 1 out of 2 slices, you can't add these together because your slices aren't the same size. So you can't really say that you have 6 slices of pizza, because the guy that has 1 out of 2 slices actually has half the pizza. If you had 1 out of 8 slices, you would only have 1/8 of the pizza. You'd have a much smaller slice than the guy who had a half. So you need to, in order to add fractions together, have kind of like a defined size for your slice or your piece, and that's what the denominator represents. The denominator kind of tells you how big each of your pieces are. If you have a denominator of 2, each piece is half of the pizza. If you have a denominator of 8, each piece is 1/8 of the pizza. So if you're going to add fractions, or you're going to add pizza slices, you want to make sure they're all the same size. So you need to have the same denominator for your fractions if you're going to add or subtract. Now, if you have a mixed number, such as 2 3/5, and 4 4/5, my suggestion to solving this problem is to convert your mixed numbers to improper fractions. So you're going to do 5 times 2, because remember the denominator tells you how many slices you need to make one whole. This 2 over here is telling you that you have 2 whole. So each one of these whole over here, each one of these 2 whole over here represents 5 slices, because I have 2 whole and the 5 represents 1 whole. So if 1 whole is 5, then 2 whole would be 10, or in other words 5 times 2 is 10 slices, plus the 3 slices that I have in the fractional piece. So the 2 whole represents 10 slices, the 3/5 represents 3 slices. So total, I have 13/5 here. Add that to 5 times 4, because again I have 4 whole. Each whole is worth 5 slices. So I have a total of 20 slices. 5 times 4 is 20. Plus the 4 out of 5 slices, so 4 more slices to the 20. And I have 24 out of 5 slices. Now it's very easy for me to add these up. 13 plus 24 is 37/5. And if you wanted to convert that into a mixed number, you could. And you would get 7 2/5. That's probably the simplest way to solving problems that have mixed numbers in them. Convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. Some people will add up the wholes first and do 2 plus 4, and then they will add up the fractions, so they'll do 3/5 plus 4/5. So we get the 6 from the 2 plus 4 plus the 7/5 from the fractions. You can see that we have an improper fraction, so if you convert that, you'd have 6 plus 1 2/5, which equals 7 2/5, just like we got before. Really, it's personal preference which method you use. I prefer to change the mixed numbers into improper fractions first. That's my preferred method. If you prefer doing it like this, by all means, you're more than welcome to. Now when you're subtracting mixed numbers, we go back with the same mixed numbers we had. Okay, and let's say we're subtracting them. You really, I really strongly encourage you to change them to improper fractions first, because that just makes figuring out whether or not your answer is supposed to be negative or positive a lot easier. So you're going to convert these into improper fractions. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13/5, minus 5 times 4 is 20, plus 4 is 24/5. And now I have a subtraction problem. As always, I like to use keep, flip, change, or KFC. So I keep the fraction on the left the same, flip subtraction to addition, change the sign of the fraction on the right to the opposite. Okay. And so I'm doing 13 plus negative 24. Since I'm adding fractions with like denominators, I know the denominator is going to stay the same. And I'm doing 13 plus negative 24, which will get me an answer of negative 11/5. And that is how you would subtract with mixed numbers. You're not always going to get a negative answer. I intentionally did an example that would, just to show you why I like to use improper fractions, because it makes figuring out whether or not your answer is negative a lot easier. So just to cut this video a little short, I'm going to wait until the next video to show you how to add algebraic fractions with common denominators and subtract algebraic fractions with common denominators, just to keep this video short. So tune in to the next video, which will be on adding and subtracting algebraic fractions with common denominators.